Hey guys, it's me, Rena from Snailworks Crochet, and welcome back to the second part of me making the Halloween crochet along. It's basically week 3. I still need to put together the squares and weave in the ends for everything I made in week 2, so I'm going to skip to some footage of me doing that. Okay, I got all of these sewed up. Ends weaved in, kind of. But essentially, the ends where I sewed them up, I didn't weave in, but like everything else has been weaved in, minus these red ends because I want to use the red ends to do the details on the eyes. Here's an example of one that I've kind of already done using the details so far. And now I can actually get started on week 3 of this crochet along. Finally. Week 3 is out. I took a brief glance at the pattern, but before I start talking about the pattern, I wanted to kind of recap my initial prediction for what week 3 would look like. And I said that they were going to do the border. And I was right. They are doing the border. One of the borders is crocheted directly on the side off of these panels. And the other part of the border is you basically chain, do the thing, and then you sew it back on. Personally, for me, I think that's stupid. And I think I'm not the only one who shares that sentiment either, because I saw in the Facebook group, a lot of people were saying, why are we doing that? One person was saying, oh, you do it separately so that way the cats can be in the same position when you sew it all together. But another person responded back saying, yeah, but then the colors are off, so I think that's kind of stupid. So there are a lot of mixed opinions on that choice. I personally think it would be easier to just kind of do the cat border directly on, and one set of cats will be right side up, the other set will be upside down, but the colors will match too. One person did say that the reason they do that might be to kind of teach you different methods of attaching borders to blankets. So that's another perspective, like a lot of people doing this crochet along, they are beginners. So I think it introduces them to methods of doing things, and people can kind of figure out what they like, what they don't like. I know a lot of people last week really hated the swirl, and I am one of those people who hated the swirl. I was able to figure it out, but I know there are quite a few people who got stuck on the swirl. Everyone's on their own little journey, but just for me, I'm going to be modifying a couple things in the pattern to kind of suit my preferences for how I crochet. And that will be not doing the cat border separately from the piece. Now that being said, another part of week 3 also includes adding on the decals for the granny squares you made. So for example, all of these squares, there's like a pumpkin, there's a swirly eyeball, skull. You're also going to be making the decorations like the skull's face, the pumpkin's face, the little bloodshot eyeball border here. And you're also going to be making the details for these bigger granny squares. Like this one will have a cat and this one will have a bat. So that could be really exciting as well. I'm gonna get to making these borders and I will check in later.
So this is how, normally whenever I sew up squares like this, I like to weave in ends as I do like a border connecting them. So let me show you how I do it. So I put my hook in, I take this end, I crochet over that, and then as I take the other end and then I pull it the other direction and then continue to crochet that way. So that way I can have weaved in ends, but like it goes in a different direction, so that way it won't get loose. So even if it gets loose this way, it's still going this way, so that way the, what's it called? So that way, like, it's still secure as I weave over it. Because I personally get incredibly paranoid about how I weave in my ends. I'm always afraid they're going to get loose. And then I'll probably leave a little bit of a tail afterward and maybe use a needle to weave it in the other way again once I'm done doing this. So, and let me show you how it looks on this one right here. So for this one had a longer tail. I weaved it in this way, and you can see it kind of tugging here. And then I switched it over here, and you can see that tail is like pulling here right there. So and then I will go over with a needle and then thread through, and then put it and tuck like maybe my needle a little bit here in the middle of the stitch, and then just kind of poke it through that way too. So that way this end is not budging. And then I can snip. Now I have an end that's been weaved in. And even if like the end pokes out a little bit, it's not a problem because that one is not moving. So, did you need that tutorial? Probably not. Was it the best? No, but that's how I do it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Another feature I'd like to show off with what I decided to do for the cat stitch border is, instead of doing that chain 86 and crocheting directly into the chain, I decided to crochet directly into the squares. I don't care if the cats are upside down. So for example, this is what it will look like since I crocheted the bottom part first. I don't really care that the cats are upside down personally, so that's why I chose to do it this way. And I think it's a little bit easier to do this directly off of the squares instead of making the chain and then like sewing the chain on. I just did not want to do sewing. But so the pattern says crochet 86, and each of these granny squares has 21 stitches if you include the chain space right here. So it's basically chain space. 19 double crochets across chain space, which equals 21. And since there are 4 granny squares, 21 times 4 is 84, and the original pattern tells you to chain 86 because 84 plus like, the chain for your first double crochet. But what I did, I've been using stacked single crochets in place of double crochets. I just prefer that. That's just how I prefer to do things. But so it starts off, what I did here in that chain space, I did the stacked single crochet, and then I did 3 double crochets, kind of like what the pattern says. And then I just continued the pattern repeat, counting each of the stitches from the granny square as if it were a chain, including the chain space, which is a part of the granny square too. I contemplated doing single crochets across the entire thing and then doing the cat stitch pattern, but I kind of didn't want to, and I was a little skeptical of how much green yarn I'd have, since there's still more to be done with this bright green color in the future part of the pattern that's not out yet. So I played it safe and just did it directly on the squares. If I were a little bit more confident with the amount of yarn I had, I would have done a row of single crochets on the wrong side, flipped it, and then started my first a couple rounds of the cat stitch here, and then so on and so forth. But yeah, I still think it turned out well, even if I didn't do the single crochets, and even if I didn't just do this part separately. I'm glad it looked this way. I'm going to continue this on the other side, and I still think, even though these cats will be upside down, I still think it looks cute, so I'm okay with it. It is what it is, and yeah. And I got to do a part of the blanket my way. You know, there have been moments where I've like frogged things and had to redo them, but I missed a 4th double crochet here, and I would rather not frog it for something like that. So what I did here, I just did snuck in a little increase to kind of keep that the same, and I'm just gonna keep it at that and not worry too much about it, because that is so insignificant. I don't want to bother changing it. If I do feel up to changing it, we'll see, but the likelihood of me changing it is pretty low. Also, so fun fact, it is Wednesday evening. I'm still working on the last of my cat stitch border. I finished the other bobble stitch border, and I have a lot to say about that one actually. And I have not done any of the decals for the bat, cat, or any of the like little details for the skull and pumpkin. I don't know if I want to do that before starting week 4, or if I want to do that as like the very last thing. I know technically you're supposed to add it now, but I kind of don't want to. Okay, I lied. I made one bat wing, and I kind of hate it, so we'll see how I'm feeling. I might kind of make it intermittently. I'll definitely get more work done on it on Friday, just because I have a work from home day on Friday, so I'll probably be able to get it done then. But yeah, I've taken a peek at week 4, and I'll let you know what that is later. Hey guys, so I finally finished the borders of this blanket. It looks pretty cool. It's funny because the first one I did of this side, I did the bobbles on the wrong side because I ignored instructions and it doesn't look as good. And I am highly debating whether I want to redo this entire side. I may or may not. So I'm going to hold off on weaving in my ends to see if I might redo this one because the bobbles aren't quite right. But this one I did it correctly and it looks good. The cap stitch border I did, I have it this way and I also have it like, you know, that way too. So like one side's right side up, one side's upside down. I don't mind the upside down look as much. I think some people would rather it not be upside down, but I like it this way just because I thought it was really stupid to chain and then sew it in. I would rather just do it directly off of the squares. Week 3 also has you doing the little details for the skull and the pumpkin and the bat. I'm probably going to hold off on doing that for now just because I don't want to, but I think I'm going to get started with week 4. Now, I don't quite remember my prediction for week 4, so I'm probably going to insert like my actual prediction for week 4 here. I think week 4 will be the tapestry piece in the middle because that's more complex tapestry crochet. I took a peek at week 4's pattern and I saw it's the tapestry graph in the center, which is cool. The thing is, like, it's kind of a big tapestry graph. I do tapestry crochet. I have no problem like with how to do it. Like I've made
my own pattern of tapestry crochet, and I've like done like, you know, smaller tapestry crochet things too. I don't really like big tapestry crochet projects just because it's just too big, and just too tedious. I think, in my opinion, tapestry is actually very straightforward for all intents and purposes, but like I don't do it too often because I don't know, I have to be in a mood to do tapestry crochet, but it's been a hot while since I've done tapestry crochet, so I'm pretty excited to do it. Now the thing is that graph is actually pretty complex for a tapestry crochet graph compared to some of the other crochet along patterns I've seen that company do. So I think this is probably the first graph where they probably might include like intarsia almost. I haven't deeply taken a look at it, but I feel like there's some tapestry crochet techniques, some intarsia crochet techniques. I'm debating if I want to do intarsia on this thing or not. Mainly because, you know, the back side of the blanket's gonna look ugly anyway, especially with like all the little decals you have to sew onto the squares. I've already accepted that the back of the blanket will look ugly, but on the other hand, I also kind of don't know if I want the back to be ugly for this blanket. So I'm on the fence a little bit. So we'll see how I'm feeling. Now, before I even start this pattern, one thing I want to call out for this week's part of the pattern is a major criticism, and I think it was a big enough criticism that they actually went ahead and addressed it. They did not include left-handed instructions for the tapestry graph. And here's the thing, at least in tapestry crochet, like left hand and right hand actually does matter, especially for a beginner pattern. And on one hand, you can criticize the creator for not including that. But on the other hand, I think more blame goes towards SIRDAR, the company, for like completely like overlooking the existence of left-handed crocheters. Because like, you know, whether you crochet right-handed or left-handed, it does actually matter for something like tapestry, especially in a tapestry crochet pattern. They did issue an apology on their Facebook page. I don't know, I didn't see anything on their Instagram, but they did issue an apology on their Facebook group. And they have since released a chart in the Facebook group saying, hey, we have now included like the chart, like the left-handed instructions here, but they didn't acknowledge it on their social media or their like listserv emails. They did like sneakily kind of add it onto the pattern download, but I thought it was kind of odd. For the original creator they partnered with, like, you can kind of lay some criticism to her there too, but at the same time, yeah, she designed the pattern, but also it had to have been like edited and reviewed by like other folks for it to be, you know, a collaboration with a yarn company, right? So I don't know. I thought it was very odd. I can see maybe in the past, like there were some tapestry crochet techniques in their past crochet alongs, but they weren't nearly as like involved, and you probably could just get away with like only having right hand instructions for those designs. But I think this design in particular, like when you have a whole like painting essentially, it matters a lot more, especially if you are probably going to do intarsia crochet where you use bobbins and you kind of like do floaties on the back of the work. Also, it spells out trick or treat, so yeah, you do want that like properly. I think if it was like a regular image, it being flipped isn't the end of the world, but when you have something spelling out trick or treat, yeah, like what direction you go in will actually matter. So I'm probably going to hold off on doing the decals probably like until much later, but I might get started on the tapestry graph now. Also, fun fact, next week I'm actually going on a business trip, so when week 5's pattern comes out, I won't be here. And I'm not gonna take this with me anyway because it's a blanket and blankets are a pain to travel with. So I leave Monday, so if I don't finish like the tapestry graph like this weekend, there will be no movement on this blanket for quite a while, just because when it comes to traveling with crochet and stuff, like bringing multiple skeins of yarn on the plane with you, it's not worth it. So I'm going to leave this at home and not think about it when I'm on my work trip next week. I don't foresee myself finishing this weekend, but I would at least like to get like most of the way done at least this weekend before I leave for my trip. Okay, I had a mini freak out earlier because I started my tapestry and it's not the same width as these squares. And I was worried that I have to start over again, and because I was not looking forward to that. But then I remembered that the blanket has a little like thing around it too to kind of bulk it up, which gave me some relief because I really did not want to have to start this over. I would cry. And also I looked at the instructions and it said it's okay if your tapestry is smaller. It just means your blanket will be smaller. I'm like, okay, good. That's fine. I'm okay with my blanket being smaller. Because I did not want to restart this tapestry. I would have cried. This took me so long and my hands hurt. And I'm not even done with it yet. So yeah. Okay, so this is how far I'm done with the tapestry right now. As of like midday Saturday, definitely have more time to go, but my hand is starting to cramp up, so I need to take a break because, I don't know, these stitches are really tight. I probably should have used a bigger hook, but I am not redoing this, so yeah. Hey guys, I'm back from my business trip. And oh man, it's been, so prior to me leaving for my work trip, I was like here, and I got here since I've been back, which is about halfway at this point. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hating this. Now, here's the thing. I have done tapestry in the past, but pieces this big are not my norm. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't want them to be my norm because it's a lot. It's truly a lot. I will say an update since the last time I talked about this. I'd actually started reading some like, you know, comments on the Facebook group where there's actually a typo in the pattern. Horizontally, it's supposed to be 16 inches, but actually it's supposed to be 13 inches. So in the diagram it said 16 by 13, but it's actually supposed to be 13 by 16. So that is the typo. I'm still short like 2 inches because my tension is super tight. Should I have used a bigger hook? Yes. I am not turning back around now because no. I think I said earlier, even if it was supposed to be 16 inches wide, I also don't care. I'm not turning around now. However, I'm going to conclude my video here primarily because I'm at the point now in the video where it's starting to get a little long, and I think what I have to say about like, you know, weeks 3 and 4 have been said. At the point I am filming, week 5 has already came out and I know what that is, but I will kind of review that in the next update for this crochet along. But let me know down in the comments below, are you planning on doing this? If you have, how far have you gotten? I think by the time this portion of the video comes out, all of the pattern will be revealed. So, you know, like, have you finished? How far have you gotten? Are you planning on doing this? Will you ever plan on doing this? Just comment down below and I'll see you around. Bye!